Have you ever noticed how illness rarely arrives, all at once, how it creeps in quietly, disguised as fatigue, stress, restless nights, or a body that just doesn't feel right anymore? What if the moment everything began to fall apart wasn't during the day but in the hour before you went to sleep? Hidden in ancient Buddhist wisdom is a simple nighttime ritual so subtle, so underestimated that monks believed could reverse the root of nearly every modern disease. 5 humble herbs, 1 glass of water, and a truth so powerful it was never meant to be rushed, only experienced. Tonight, you're about to discover why healing doesn't begin with medicine, but with how you end your day, and why the ending of this story may completely change how you live tomorrow. If this message resonates with you, subscribe to the channel Buddhism in Every Moment. Your support gives us the strength and inspiration to continue creating meaningful videos that bring peace, clarity, and healing into everyday life. There is a quiet moment most people never question: the last hour before sleep. It arrives every night without ceremony, often swallowed by screens, unfinished thoughts, or the dull exhaustion of another day survived rather than lived. Yet hidden inside that hour is where the story truly turns. Not when the body collapses into illness, not when the diagnosis finally has a name, but much earlier, when the signs are still whispers. The heaviness you can't explain, the sleep that no longer restores, the feeling that something inside you is slowly drifting out of balance, even though everything on the outside looks fine. Modern life teaches us to search for answers in motion. We run toward solutions, toward upgrades, toward the next promise of relief. More information, more supplements, more productivity. But ancient wisdom asks a different question, one that feels almost unsettling in its simplicity. What if healing doesn't begin with adding something new, but with how you choose to end your day? This is where the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. Walk through the glow of late-night windows in a city that never truly rests, places like New York or Chicago, where light bleeds through curtains long past midnight. Inside those rooms are people who are technically safe, technically successful, technically connected, yet deeply tired in ways sleep alone no longer fixes. Their bodies are inflamed, their minds overstimulated, their nervous systems locked in survival mode. Illness doesn't announce itself here with drama. It seeps in quietly, disguised as normal. Ancient Buddhist teachings never framed sickness as an enemy that suddenly attacks. They saw it as a process, a gradual forgetting of rhythm, forgetting when to slow down, forgetting how to listen, forgetting that the body is not a machine to be pushed, but a living system that responds to care, timing, and intention. In that worldview, healing was never urgent. It was deliberate. What feels shocking to the modern mind is not that monks lived with fewer diseases, but that they didn't chase health at all. They cultivated alignment. Their days ended gently. Their nights were treated as sacred territory, not empty time to be filled with noise. And within that space, quiet, repetitive, almost invisible small rituals took root. Nothing dramatic, nothing marketable. Just consistency, patience, and trust in nature's intelligence. The power of these rituals wasn't in what they promised, but in what they removed. They stripped away excess. Excess stimulation, excess urgency, excess belief that healing must hurt or be complicated. Instead, they worked with the body at the only time it truly knows how to repair itself, when the world goes quiet and defenses soften. This is the part of the story most people miss. Healing doesn't happen when we're trying. It happens when we finally stop interfering. During sleep, the body shifts priorities. Digestion slows. The brain clears waste. Hormones rebalance. Inflammation is either resolved or allowed to smolder, depending on what signals we've sent before closing our eyes. The night doesn't judge. it simply responds. Modern medicine now confirms what ancient traditions observed without microscopes. Most chronic conditions share common roots. Inflammation that never shuts off, stress that never releases, digestion that never fully completes its work, a nervous system that never receives the message that it's safe. These are not separate problems. They are echoes of the same imbalance. An imbalance doesn't ask for force. It asks for rhythm. This is why the idea of a nighttime ritual feels almost radical today. Not because it's mystical, but because it asks for presence. It asks you to pause when everything in you wants to scroll, distract, or collapse. It asks you to believe that small actions, repeated with care, can reshape a life more effectively than one grand effort ever could. In Buddhist philosophy, the end of the day was never a collapse. It was a return to the body, a return to breathe, a return to simplicity. Preparing something as humble as herbal water before sleep was not about curing disease in the way we think of cures. It was about signaling the body that it was supported, that it didn't need to stay alert, that the night could do its work. What makes this wisdom uncomfortable is how little it demands and how much it gives back. There is no urgency in it, yet it changes everything over time. There is no promise of instant relief, yet the relief is deeper and more permanent. It doesn't override the body's intelligence. It restores it. Most people wait for pain to demand attention. Ancient wisdom listens before the pain speaks. It recognizes that fatigue is not weakness, that restlessness is not normal, that constant tension is not the price of being alive. It understands that the body keeps score not to punish us, but to guide us back when we've drifted too far. The real question, then, is not whether ancient practices still work in a modern world. The question is whether modern life has made us forget how to recognize what works at all. We've been trained to trust what is loud, fast, and immediate, but healing has always been quiet. It moves at the pace of trust. This story does not begin with herbs, techniques, or promises of miraculous outcomes. It begins with a moment of recognition, the realization that how you end your day may be shaping your health more than anything you do while the sun is up. That the most powerful intervention might not be another solution, but a gentler relationship with time itself. Once that truth lands, the rest of the journey unfolds naturally. Not as a fight against illness, but as a return to balance. And balance, once remembered, has a way of healing far more than we ever thought possible. Night arrives without asking permission. It doesn't announce itself with urgency or demand your attention. It simply comes softly, steadily waiting to see whether you will meet it with awareness or surrender it to habit. Most people treat nighttime as an afterthought, a collapse at the end of a long day. But the body does not see night as an ending. It sees it as a doorway. While the world quiets, something ancient awakens within you. Systems you cannot consciously control take over with remarkable precision. Your brain begins clearing what no longer belongs. Your liver shifts into repair. Cells damaged by stress, pollution, and emotional strain begin a quiet conversation about restoration. This is not rest in the casual sense. This is reconstruction. Yet here is the uncomfortable truth. The body only repairs what it feels safe enough to repair. And safety is not created by sleep alone. It is created by the signals you send before sleep begins. Every night, your nervous system asks one simple question: are we safe now? If the answer is no, if the mind is still racing, if the body is still tense, if the day is still clinging to you, then sleep becomes shallow, fragmented, incomplete. You may close your eyes for 8 hours, yet wake up feeling as though nothing truly happened. The night passed, but the healing never arrived. Ancient Buddhist wisdom understood this long before sleep studies and brain scans confirmed it. Nighttime was not viewed as empty space between productive days. It was sacred time, a protected window when the body's intelligence was finally free to work without interruption. But that intelligence needed cooperation, not resistance. Modern life, especially in places that glorify constant momentum, like Silicon Valley or Manhattan, teaches us to bring the day into the night. Emails spill into the bedroom. Stress follows us under the covers. The nervous system never receives closure. We expect the body to heal while refusing to let it stand down. And slowly, quietly, the cost accumulates. What makes nighttime so powerful is not darkness itself, but timing. The body operates on rhythms far older than civilization. Hormones rise and fall in precise sequences. Organs take turns regenerating. When those rhythms are honored, healing feels effortless. When they are ignored, the body compensates until it can't anymore. This is why ancient practices place so much emphasis on the hour before sleep. Not because of superstition, but because that hour determines the quality of everything that follows. It is the bridge between action and restoration. Rush across it, and the body never fully arrives. Cross it slowly, with intention, and something profound begins to happen. Healing during the night is not dramatic. There is no sensation, no proof you can point to in the morning. That is why most people underestimate it. But invisibility does not mean insignificance. In fact, the most powerful transformations often occur where the ego is not watching. Think about how the body heals a cut. You don't supervise it. You don't command the cells. You simply create conditions where healing is possible, then step out of the way. Nighttime healing works the same way, but on a much larger scale. It repairs what stress frayed, what poor digestion burdened, what emotional weight distorted. It restores balance not by force, but by permission. The tragedy of modern wellness culture is that it treats healing as effort. Push harder. Do more. Optimize endlessly. Ancient wisdom whispers a different message: stop interfering. The body already knows what to do. It only needs consistency, timing, and respect. This is where the idea of a nighttime ritual becomes something far deeper than a health habit. It becomes an act of trust. Trust that you don't have to fix everything right now. Trust that the night can carry what the day could not. Trust that small, repeated gestures done without drama can reshape the future of your health. Buddhist teachings never separated physical healing from mental quiet. They understood that the body listens to the mind, especially at night. What you bring into sleep, your last thoughts, your last actions, your final pace, becomes instruction. Calm tells the body it may repair. Chaos tells it to remain alert. Nighttime is the body's sacred window because it is the only time when survival instincts soften enough to allow true regeneration. But that window does not stay open forever. Miss it night after night, and the body adapts by lowering its expectations. Healing becomes partial. Inflammation lingers. Fatigue becomes familiar. Honor it, however, and the changes are subtle at first, then undeniable. Sleep deepens. Mornings feel lighter. The body stops bracing against itself. Not because you forced it to improve, but because you finally aligned with how it was designed to heal. This is the lesson modern life resists the most. Healing does not respond to urgency. It responds to rhythm. And rhythm begins in the quiet moments. We usually ignore the moments right before sleep, when the world fades, and the body is ready to remember how to restore itself. When people first hear about 5 simple herbs, the mind immediately resists. 5 feels too small, too ordinary. In a world trained to believe that healing must be complex, expensive, or extreme, simplicity feels suspicious. If health were really that accessible, surely we would have found it by now. And yet, This doubt reveals something important not about the herbs, but about how far we've drifted from understanding the body itself. Ancient wisdom never asked, "What disease do you have?" It asked a far more honest question: what has fallen out of balance? Because illness, in its countless forms, is rarely random. It is patterned, predictable, rooted. The surface symptoms may wear different names: fatigue, anxiety, joint pain, digestive trouble, hormonal chaos, but beneath them, the same currents repeat again and again. Inflammation that never resolves, stress that never fully leaves, digestion that never finishes its work, a nervous system that stays on guard long after danger has passed, an immune system exhausted from constant overreaction. These are not separate problems. They are variations of the same imbalance, expressing themselves through different doors. This is why the 5 herbs matter, not as cures for individual illnesses, but as responses to the body's deepest patterns. They were not chosen because they were rare or exotic. They were chosen because they addressed what most human bodies, across centuries and cultures, consistently struggle with. The monks did not collect dozens of plants to chase symptoms. They refined. They observed. They removed what was unnecessary until only what truly mattered remained. Each herb works in a different direction, yet none of them works alone. This is where modern thinking often fails us. We look for a single hero solution, a pill that fixes everything. But the body does not operate in isolation. It is an ecosystem. When one system is inflamed, another compensates. When one function weakens, another works harder to cover the loss. Healing, then, is never about overpowering a problem. It is about restoring cooperation. These 5 herbs form a kind of quiet architecture. One supports digestion so nutrients can actually be absorbed. Another calms inflammation so tissues can repair instead of defend. Another stabilizes stress so hormones can communicate clearly. Another regulates metabolism so energy stops swinging between extremes. Another strengthens resilience so the body doesn't collapse under pressure. Together, they don't attack disease. They dismantle the conditions that allow disease to stay. The phrase 99% of diseases was never meant to shock for attention. It was meant to point toward a truth. We often avoid most suffering persists, not because the body is broken, but because the same imbalances are allowed to repeat unchecked for years. When those imbalances are corrected, symptoms don't need to be fought. They lose their reason to exist. Modern science now echoes this understanding in different language. Chronic inflammation is linked to heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, depression, and neurodegeneration. Poor gut function affects immunity, mood, and hormone balance. Chronic stress rewires the brain and disrupts every system it touches. These discoveries feel new only because we forgot what the body has always been trying to tell us. The monks didn't need statistics to see patterns. They lived close enough to their bodies to notice cause and effect. They watched how certain foods created clarity or heaviness, how certain practices produced calm or agitation. Over generations, this awareness distilled into a simple truth: fewer tools used consistently are more powerful than many tools used carelessly. There is also a deeper lesson hidden here, one that reaches beyond physical health. The choice of 5 herbs reflects a philosophy of restraint, of knowing when enough is enough, of trusting that the body thrives not on excess, but on harmony. In a culture addicted to accumulation, more information, more products, more stimulation, this idea feels almost rebellious. But healing has never been about accumulation. It has always been about alignment. When you support the body's root systems, everything downstream begins to change. Energy stabilizes. Cravings soften. Sleep deepens. Pain loses its grip, not because you forced improvement, but because the body finally received what it had been asking for all along. This is why the herbs are not random. They are responses to the most common ways we suffer. They are simple because the truth is simple. And they are powerful, not because they dominate the body, but because they listen to it. What makes this approach uncomfortable for the modern mind is that it removes urgency. It doesn't promise instant results. It asks for patience, repetition, and trust. Yet those are the very qualities the body recognizes as safety. And safety is where healing begins. When you understand this, the question is no longer whether 5 herbs can change your health. The real question becomes whether you are willing to stop chasing symptoms long enough to address what's beneath them. Because when the roots are nourished, the rest of the system follows quietly, naturally, and with a wisdom far older than any diagnosis. There is a kind of exhaustion that sleep alone cannot touch. It settles deep in the body, not as pain, but as heaviness, cold hands even in warm rooms, slow mornings that drag long after the alarm, digestion that feels stuck, thoughts that never quite ignite. Ancient traditions recognized this state not as illness, but as a loss of inner fire. And where modern life numbs, ginger awakens. Ginger was never revered because it was gentle. It was honored because it was honest. It brings warmth where there has been stagnation, movement where there has been holding, life where the body has quietly begun to conserve instead of circulate. In Buddhist understanding, warmth is not comfort, it is vitality. It is the sign that energy is moving freely, that digestion is completing its work, that the body is no longer bracing against itself. What makes ginger so profound is not that it forces change, but that it reminds the body how to begin again. When soaked slowly overnight, its sharpness softens, transforming into a steady, penetrating warmth rather than an aggressive heat. This mirrors the way true healing works, not by shock, but by persistence. Not by intensity, but by continuity. Modern culture often celebrates extremes, cold plunges, harsh cleanses, aggressive detoxes. Ginger offers a different lesson. Healing does not require punishment. It requires ignition, a gentle fire that burns steadily enough to restore circulation, digestion, and clarity without overwhelming the system. This is why ginger has always been associated with beginnings. It is the first spark. In the body, that spark appears first in the gut. Digestion is where vitality is either created or lost. When digestion slows, everything downstream suffers, energy drops, inflammation rises, immunity weakens. Ginger addresses this at the source, not by stimulating nervously, but by warming the terrain so the body can do what it already knows how to do. Food becomes nourishment again, not burden. Energy becomes available, not rationed, but ginger's reach extends beyond the physical. Warmth has an emotional dimension. Coldness in the body often parallels guardedness in the mind. When the system has been under stress for too long, it tightens. It conserves. It prepares for threat. Ginger gently interrupts that pattern. It tells the nervous system that movement is safe again. That circulation is allowed. That holding on is no longer necessary. This is why ginger feels grounding rather than stimulating. It doesn't scatter energy. It gathers it. People often describe a subtle sense of presence after consistent use, not a rush, but a return. As if the body remembers how it used to feel before tension became constant. There is also humility in ginger's role. It does not pretend to be everything. It does not claim to fix what it cannot reach. It simply prepares the ground. And in doing so, it becomes indispensable. Without warmth, nothing else integrates properly. Without movement, healing stagnates. Ginger ensures that whatever follows has somewhere to go. In ancient practice, ginger was often the first herb introduced, not because it was the strongest, but because it was the most foundational. Before balance can be restored, circulation must return. Before repair can occur, stagnation must release. Ginger does this quietly, faithfully, night after night, without demanding attention. There is a lesson here that extends far beyond health. Many people try to change their lives by force radical decisions, dramatic resolutions, sudden reinventions. Ginger teaches a different path. Start by warming what has gone cold. Move what has been still. Do not demand transformation. Invite it. The fire Ginger awakens is not destructive. It does not burn through you. It lives within you, steady and sustaining, reminding your body that vitality is not something you chase, it is something you allow to flow again. And when that flow returns, even subtly, everything else begins to respond. Energy rises without effort. Digestion finds its rhythm. The body stops resisting itself. Healing no longer feels like work. It feels like remembering. Some forms of healing never announce themselves. They don't arrive with sensation or immediate relief. They don't demand attention or offer proof you can feel by morning. They work quietly, beneath awareness, reshaping the future rather than repairing the present. Turmeric belongs to this deeper category of medicine, the kind that protects you long before you realize you needed protection. If ginger is the fire that awakens the body, turmeric is the guardian that stands watch while you sleep. It does not rush in to fix what is already broken. It moves slowly, patiently, addressing the subtle damage that accumulates when life is lived under constant pressure. In Buddhist understanding, the most dangerous illnesses are not the ones that hurt today, but the ones forming silently beneath the surface. Turmeric was revered precisely because it works where pain has not yet spoken. Modern life teaches us to respond only when symptoms become unbearable. Ancient wisdom understood that true intelligence lies in prevention. Not out of fear, but out of respect for the body's limits. Turmeric embodies this respect. It does not overwhelm the system. It strengthens it from within, cell by cell, layer by layer, restoring order where chaos has begun to settle. Inflammation is the common language of suffering. It speaks through stiff joints, foggy thinking, unstable moods, exhausted immunity. It is the body's alarm system stuck in the on position. Turmeric does not silence that alarm. It teaches the body when it is no longer needed. It works at the deepest levels, calming the inflammatory signals that keep tissues locked in defense instead of repair. What makes turmeric extraordinary is not force, but consistency. Its power is cumulative. Invisible at first, almost disappointing to those conditioned to expect dramatic results. But over time, something shifts. The body stops fighting itself. Systems communicate more clearly. Repair becomes the default rather than the exception. There is wisdom in this slowness. Healing that lasts does not happen quickly. It happens thoroughly. Turmeric understands time. It works in partnership with the night, entering the body when distractions are gone, when the nervous system softens enough to allow real change. This is why it was prepared for overnight infusion, not to extract more strength, but to align with the body's natural pace of restoration. In Buddhist philosophy, yellow is the color of illumination. Not the blinding light of revelation, but the steady glow of understanding. Turmeric carries this symbolism beautifully. It does not shout truth. It reveals it gently. It clears the fog so the body can see its own path back to balance. There is also humility in turmeric's role. It does not claim to cure disease. It claims to reduce the conditions that allow disease to grow. This distinction matters. It shifts the focus from fighting symptoms to cultivating resilience, from reacting to illness to living in a way that makes illness less likely to take hold. Emotionally, turmeric mirrors a profound life lesson. Many people live as though healing must be dramatic to be real. That change must hurt to matter. Turmeric teaches the opposite. The most meaningful protection often feels like nothing at all. Until one day, you realize how much you've been spared. As the body absorbs turmeric's quiet intelligence, something subtle happens in the mind as well. There is less urgency, less internal friction, a sense that not everything needs to be addressed right now. This calm is not passivity. It is confidence, the kind that comes from knowing the foundation is strong. Turmeric does not chase pain. It builds strength. It does not respond to crisis. It prevents it. And in doing so, it invites a different relationship with health altogether, one rooted in foresight rather than fear, patience rather than pressure. When healing is approached this way, the body stops bracing for impact. It begins to trust the process. And trust, once restored, becomes one of the most powerful medicines of all. There is a kind of pain that never shows up on scans. No bruise. No inflammation marker. No clear diagnosis. Yet its shape lives more quietly and more completely than most physical illnesses ever could. It lives in the nervous system, in the breath that never fully drops, in the mind that never truly rests. This is the invisible wound of stress, and holy basil was never meant to fight it. It was meant to dissolve it. Modern life has normalized tension. We call it ambition, responsibility, productivity, but the body knows the truth. It experiences stress not as motivation, but as threat. When stress becomes chronic, the nervous system forgets how to stand down. Hormones misfire. Immunity weakens. Sleep becomes shallow. Healing slows not because the body is incapable, but because it never receives permission to relax. Holy basil, known as tulsi, does not force calm the way sedatives do. It restores balance by reminding the body of something it has forgotten, how to regulate itself. This is what makes tulsi different. It does not push the system in one direction. It listens first. Then it responds intelligently. In Buddhist tradition, tulsi was never valued simply for its medicinal effects. It was honored because it supported the very foundation of spiritual practice, a mind capable of stillness, clarity, and emotional steadiness. Without these qualities, even the healthiest body feels heavy. With them, the body becomes resilient. Tulsi works where stress does its deepest damage. It speaks directly to the stress response system, gently lowering what has been chronically elevated and strengthening what has been worn down. When cortisol runs the body, healing becomes impossible. Tulsi does not suppress cortisol aggressively. It teaches the body how to regulate it again. This distinction is subtle, but profound. There is something deeply human about Tulsi's effect. People often describe a sense of emotional spaciousness after consistent use, not euphoria, not numbness, but room. Room to breathe. Room to respond instead of react. Room to sleep without carrying the weight of the day into the night. This is not accidental. When stress releases, the body stops bracing against itself. Energy that was trapped in vigilance becomes available for repair. What makes Tulsi especially powerful is its adaptogenic nature. It does not assume what you need. It adjusts. When the system is overactivated, it calms. When it is depleted, it supports. This intelligence mirrors the wisdom of the body itself. Healing is not about imposing control. It is about restoring communication. Emotionally, Tulsi carries an important lesson. Many people believe they must earn rest. That calm is a reward for productivity. That peace comes after everything is done. Tulsi challenges this belief at its core. It teaches that calm is not the absence of responsibility, it is the ground from which responsibility can be met without self-destruction. Stress does not just live in the mind. It embeds itself in tissues, breath patterns, digestion, sleep cycles. Tulsi reaches these layers not through force, but through trust. Over time, the body stops interpreting the world as a constant threat. Muscles soften. Breathing deepens. Sleep becomes a place of refuge rather than escape. In Buddhist understanding, suffering often arises not from pain itself, but from resistance. Tulsi does not numb pain. It reduces resistance. It helps the system stop fighting every sensation, every emotion, every uncertainty. This is why its effects feel so holistic. When resistance drops, healing accelerates everywhere at once. There is also a quiet courage in Tulsi's approach. It does not promise to remove stress from life. It promises something far more valuable, the ability to move through stress without being consumed by it. This is resilience, not avoidance. Strength without hardness. Stability without rigidity. As Tulsi becomes part of a nightly rhythm, something shifts in how the body experiences time. The future feels less urgent. The past loses its grip. The present becomes inhabitable, and in that space, healing finds room to work. Holy basil does not fix you. It returns you to balance, to clarity, to the version of yourself that existed before stress became your default state. And once you remember that state, the body begins to recognize it as home again. There is a quiet danger in excess, even when what we consume is considered healthy. Too much effort, too much control, too much intensity in the pursuit of wellness. Cinnamon enters this story not as a stimulant or a cure-all, but as a teacher of restraint, a reminder that true healing is not about pushing the body harder, but about restoring balance where it has been lost. In Buddhist understanding, imbalance is rarely dramatic. It builds slowly, often under the disguise of productivity. Blood sugar that spikes and crashes. Energy that surges and collapses. Focus that sharpens briefly, then fades into exhaustion. These patterns do not feel like illness at first. They feel like modern life. Cinnamon speaks directly to this hidden instability. Cinnamon's warmth is different from ginger's awakening fire. It does not ignite. It harmonizes. It moves through the body like a conductor guiding an orchestra, ensuring that no system overwhelms the others. Metabolism, circulation, cognition, energy all begin to move in rhythm, rather than competition. This is why cinnamon was revered not for dramatic effects, but for its ability to create coherence. At the center of cinnamon's influence is blood sugar, the quiet driver of mood, energy, and long-term health. When blood sugar is unstable, the body lives in reaction mode. Cravings appear suddenly. Irritability rises without warning. Fatigue arrives even after rest. Cinnamon does not dominate this system. It supports it gently, helping cells respond more intelligently instead of defensively. What makes cinnamon's lesson so profound is its insistence on moderation. In ancient practice, it was never used carelessly. The monks understood that even powerful medicine becomes harmful when taken without wisdom. Cinnamon teaches that healing requires boundaries. That more is not better. That the body thrives when it is supported, not overwhelmed. This philosophy extends far beyond physical health. Many people live as though balance is weakness, as though intensity is proof of commitment. Cinnamon challenges this belief quietly but firmly. It shows that steadiness outlasts force, that consistency outperforms extremes, that a life lived in rhythm is more resilient than one lived in bursts. Cinnamon's warmth also reaches the mind. It sharpens clarity without agitation. Focus improves without tension. Thoughts organize themselves rather than racing. This cognitive balance is not accidental. When metabolic signals stabilize, the brain no longer operates under emergency conditions. It can think, reflect, and respond instead of react. There is a humility to cinnamon's role that mirrors one of Buddhism's core teachings, the middle way. Neither indulgence nor deprivation. Neither excess heat nor numbing cold. Cinnamon exists precisely in this middle space. It warms without burning. It stimulates without scattering. It supports without dominating. In a culture that celebrates extreme diets, extreme workouts, extreme self-optimization. This message feels almost radical. But the body recognizes its truth immediately. When supported with balance, it stops swinging between survival and collapse. Energy becomes dependable. Healing becomes sustainable. Cinnamon also carries a quiet warning. Healing is not about collecting remedies. It is about discernment, knowing not just what to use, but how much, when, and why. This awareness transforms medicine from a tool into a practice, from consumption into relationship. As cinnamon becomes part of a nightly rhythm, the body learns a new pattern, one where regulation replaces reaction, where energy flows evenly instead of surging and crashing, where health is not a battle but a steady unfolding. In this way, cinnamon teaches one of the most important lessons of all. The body does not need intensity to heal. It needs balance. And balance, once restored, has a way of protecting the body far more effectively than force ever could. Many people do all the right things and still don't heal. They eat carefully. They rest when they can. They try every recommendation with sincerity. And yet the results remain inconsistent, fragile, incomplete. Ancient wisdom understood why. Healing does not fail because the medicine is wrong. It fails because the body cannot receive it. Fennel exists for this reason alone. It is not dramatic. It does not announce itself with heat or intensity. Its power lies in coordination, in its ability to make everything else work. Without proper digestion, without true absorption, even the most potent remedies pass through the body like visitors who were never truly welcomed. In Buddhist understanding, digestion is not merely physical. It is the body's ability to process life itself. Food, emotions, stress, experience, everything must be broken down, sorted, integrated, or released. When this process falters, nothing else functions as intended. Energy stagnates. Toxins accumulate. Hormones miscommunicate. The body becomes busy but ineffective. Fennel addresses this quiet breakdown with extraordinary intelligence. It calms the digestive system without slowing it. It stimulates movement without irritation. It reduces fermentation, gas, and inflammation so the gut can complete its work rather than react defensively. When digestion stabilizes, the entire body exhales. What makes fennel unique is its role as a facilitator. It does not dominate the system. It creates harmony so other healing forces can express themselves fully. Ginger's warmth circulates more smoothly. Turmeric's protection integrates more deeply. Tulsi's calming influence settles more completely. Cinnamon's balance becomes sustainable. Fennel ensures that none of these efforts are wasted. Modern science now confirms what monks observed long ago. The gut is not just a digestive organ. It is a command center. It communicates with the brain, the immune system, and the hormonal network continuously. When the gut is inflamed or overloaded, healing anywhere else becomes compromised. Fennel restores order at this central junction. There is something deeply reassuring about fennel's effect. People often describe a sense of internal spaciousness, a feeling that the body is no longer crowded or congested. Appetite becomes clearer. Cravings soften. Energy feels cleaner, not forced. This is not weight loss or detox in the aggressive sense. It is normalization. Fennel also teaches a subtle emotional lesson. Many people rush healing, just as they rush meals, conversations, and decisions. They consume without processing. Fennel slows the internal tempo. It reminds the body that taking time is not weakness. It is efficiency. What is fully digested nourishes. What is rushed becomes burden. In ancient practice, fennel was often the final piece added, not because it was least important, but because it completed the system. Healing is not about piling solutions on top of dysfunction. It is about removing friction so the body's own intelligence can function again. Fennel removes that friction. As digestion improves, other changes follow quietly. Hormones stabilize because nutrients are finally absorbed. Immunity strengthens because the gut barrier repairs. Mental clarity improves because inflammation decreases. Even emotional resilience grows because the nervous system is no longer burdened by constant internal distress. There is humility in Fennel's role that mirrors one of life's most overlooked truths. The smallest adjustments often unlock the greatest change. People search endlessly for the next breakthrough, unaware that what they lack is not more medicine, but better reception. When the body learns how to receive again, healing stops being a struggle. It becomes a collaboration. Each herb, each practice, each quiet night works together instead of competing. The system begins to feel whole. Fennel does not heal by force. It heals by allowing healing to happen. And once the body remembers how to absorb what it is given, whether nourishment, rest, or care, the path forward becomes clearer, steadier, and far more sustainable than any quick fix could ever offer. Most people believe healing begins with what you take into your body. Ancient wisdom knew it begins with how you show up for yourself. The night ritual was never about the herbs alone. It was about the moment you finally stopped running and allowed your body to feel accompanied rather than managed. In modern life, evenings are often filled with noise disguised as rest. Screens glow, thoughts replay. Tomorrow presses forward before today has even settled. The body lies down, but the nervous system remains standing guard. The ritual interrupts this pattern not by force, but by presence. It creates a deliberate pause, a threshold between the chaos of the day and the intelligence of the night. The act itself is simple, but simplicity does not mean shallowness. Preparing something slowly, intentionally, without distraction sends a message far more powerful than words. It tells the body you are no longer being rushed. You are no longer being ignored. You matter enough to be tended to gently. This is why the ritual works even before the water is ever consumed. The moment you slow your movements, the nervous system begins to recalibrate. Breathing deepens. Muscles soften. The internal dialogue quiets. What looks like a small habit is actually a profound signal of safety. And safety is the condition healing has been waiting for. The ritual also restores something many adults have lost the ability to transition. Children move naturally from activity to rest. Adults often collapse instead. There is no closing of the day, no integration of experience, no release. The ritual becomes that missing bridge. It allows the body to complete the day rather than carry it into the night. In Buddhist understanding, intention is not wishful thinking. It is direction. When you prepare your nighttime remedy with awareness, you are orienting the body toward repair. Not by commanding it to heal, but by removing the obstacles that prevent healing from happening on its own. Attention becomes medicine. Consistency becomes trust. What makes this ritual so transformative is that it requires nothing external to change. Life does not need to become easier. Stress does not need to disappear. Circumstances do not need to improve. The ritual teaches the body how to return to balance regardless of what the day contained. This is real resilience. Over time, the body begins to associate evening with relief rather than vigilance. Sleep deepens not because of exhaustion, but because the system finally feels supported. Mornings begin with less resistance. The body stops bracing against the next demand. Healing becomes woven into the rhythm of daily life rather than treated as an emergency response. There is also dignity in repetition. The ritual does not seek novelty. It does not entertain. It does not impress. It simply shows up, night after night, offering the same quiet care. This reliability is profoundly healing in a world defined by unpredictability. The body learns it can depend on something again. Emotionally, the ritual does something subtle and powerful. It reframes self-care from indulgence to responsibility. Not the harsh responsibility of discipline, but the compassionate responsibility of stewardship. You are not fixing yourself because you are broken. You are tending to yourself because you are alive. The ritual also dissolves the illusion that healing must be complicated. It strips away the idea that you need to understand everything to begin. You don't need perfect belief. You don't need certainty. You need willingness. Willingness to slow down. Willingness to repeat something small with sincerity. Willingness to trust that the body responds to care. As the ritual becomes familiar, it stops feeling like a task and starts feeling like a refuge. A moment each day where nothing is demanded of you except presence. In that presence, the body remembers its own intelligence. It stops waiting for permission from the mind. It begins to repair because the conditions are finally right. This is why the ritual rebuilds you. Not dramatically, not overnight, but steadily, invisibly, and deeply. It does not promise a different life. It promises a different relationship with the life you already have. And in that relationship, healing finds a place to stay. Most people abandon healing just before it begins to work. Not because they lack discipline, but because they were taught to expect transformation to arrive loudly and quickly. When it doesn't, doubt steps in. Ancient wisdom understood this human tendency deeply, which is why the final teaching was never about herbs or rituals at all. It was about commitment. About staying when nothing dramatic seems to be happening. The 40-day promise is not symbolic. It is biological. It is neurological. It is the minimum time required for the body to recognize a new rhythm as safe and worth maintaining. Before that threshold, healing feels fragile. After it, healing becomes familiar. The body does not change because it is convinced by logic. It changes because it experiences consistency. When the same signals arrive night after night, slowness, care, warmth, balance, regulation, the nervous system stops questioning. It stops scanning for danger. It stops holding resources in reserve. It begins to invest in repair. This is why so many people feel small improvements early on but nothing lasting. They touch the edge of change, then retreat. The body, sensitive to inconsistency, returns to old patterns. Not out of punishment, but out of survival. Stability matters more to the body than improvement. The 40-day window is where stability is established. There is something deeply humbling about this truth. Healing does not respond to intensity. It responds to reliability. It does not reward motivation. It rewards devotion, the quiet kind that shows up whether you feel inspired or not. The kind that does not negotiate with discomfort or impatience. During the first days, changes are subtle. Sleep improves slightly. Digestion feels less heavy. The mind softens at the edges. These are not results to celebrate yet. They are signals. Signals that the body is listening. In the following weeks, deeper shifts occur. Inflammation settles. Energy becomes steadier rather than reactive. Emotional swings lose their sharpness. The body stops treating every stimulus as an emergency. None of this announces itself as a breakthrough. It simply feels like less struggle. And that is precisely how real healing feels. By the time 40 days pass, something fundamental has changed. The ritual is no longer something you do. It is something you are. The body no longer waits to see if the care will continue. It trusts that it will. And in that trust, healing accelerates. This is the moment most people don't anticipate, the moment when stopping feels harder than continuing. When the practice is no longer effort, but alignment. When the body recognizes itself again, not as a problem to solve, but as a system capable of balance. The 40-day promise is not a challenge. It is an invitation to step out of urgency and into relationship. A relationship with your body that is no longer adversarial, no longer transactional, no longer based on fear of illness or obsession with optimization. What emerges after this period is not perfection. Life does not suddenly become effortless. Stress does not disappear. But the body no longer collapses under pressure. It adapts. It recovers. It returns to center more quickly. This is resilience, the kind that sustains a lifetime. There is also a deeper transformation that happens quietly. The way you see yourself shifts. You stop waiting to be rescued by the next solution. You stop outsourcing your well-being entirely. You realize that healing was never something you had to chase. It was something you had to allow consistently. The promise, then, is not that 40 days will fix everything. The promise is that 40 days will teach your body to trust again. And trust is the foundation of every lasting change. When healing is approached this way, it stops being a project with an endpoint. It becomes a way of living. A way of ending each day with care rather than collapse. A way of meeting the body not with demands, but with partnership. And once that partnership is restored, the question is no longer how to heal. The body already knows. The only question left is whether you are willing to keep showing up quietly, patiently, and with the understanding that the most profound transformations unfold not in moments of effort, but in seasons of consistency. This story is not about herbs, rituals, or ancient traditions standing in opposition to modern life. It is about something far more intimate, the quiet relationship between your body, your time, and the way you choose to care for yourself when no one is watching. Through the lens of Buddhist wisdom, we were invited to see healing not as a dramatic rescue, but as a gradual return to balance. 5 simple herbs became symbols of something deeper: warmth, protection, calm, balance, and integration. Together, they revealed a truth that modern culture often overlooks, that the body is not broken, just overwhelmed, and that healing begins when pressure is replaced with rhythm. Each part of the journey reminded us that illness rarely appears suddenly. It forms slowly, in the absence of rest, in unresolved stress, in digestion that never completes, in nights that never truly settle. The ancient practice of preparing herbal water before sleep was never meant to be a cure in the conventional sense. It was a signal to the nervous system that the day is over. A signal to the body that it is safe to repair. A signal to the mind that it can finally release control. What makes this wisdom so powerful is its humility. There is no urgency, no promise of instant transformation. Instead, there is consistency. Night after night, the same gentle actions communicate care. Over time, the body responds not because it is forced to change, but because it trusts that the conditions for healing will remain. That trust becomes the foundation for resilience, clarity, and long-term well-being. The deeper lesson here extends far beyond health. In a world addicted to speed, optimization, and constant stimulation, this story reminds us that what truly sustains life is not intensity, but steadiness, not control, but cooperation, not doing more, but doing something small with presence and repeating it faithfully. Healing, like growth, does not respond to pressure. It responds to patience. So how can this lesson be applied to modern life? Start by honoring transitions. End your day intentionally, even if only for a few quiet minutes. Create a ritual not because it is perfect, but because it is consistent. Choose actions that signal safety rather than urgency. Treat your body not as a problem to solve, but as a partner to support. Whether it is through mindful preparation, conscious breathing, or simply slowing down before sleep, remember that what you do repeatedly shapes how your body learns to live. Most importantly, release the belief that healing must look dramatic to be real. Real change often feels subtle. It shows up as less resistance, steadier energy, deeper rest, and a quiet sense of being more at home in your own body. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. Now we'd love to hear from you. What part of this story resonated most deeply with your own life? Do you believe healing is more about rhythm than urgency? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments so others can learn from your perspective as well. And if this message brought you clarity, comfort, or inspiration, please subscribe to the channel Buddhism in Every Moment. Your support allows us to continue creating meaningful content that brings ancient wisdom into modern life one moment, one breath, one night at a time.